So, I'm Nellis. I'm the owner and builder of Logic Dive Gear. I brought the Genesis scooters today. I've got a Genesis 1240 and a Genesis 600. Those are watt-hour numbers for the batteries. The main interesting feature of this scooter is the magnetic coupling for the propeller. There's no dynamic shaft seals. The magnets inside the housing drive the magnets on the propeller, so there's no dynamic seals whatsoever. And it just goes back in like that. Also, it's full variable speed at the trigger. So that would be full speed, that would be all the way off, and it's variable anywhere in between. There's a bit of a deadband on the bottom. So this would be full off in this general range. And so should the trigger get locked on, you can always just flip the speed all the way to zero, drive it that way. The handle is a little different than most. You've got a lock off for the trigger there, a lock on for the trigger there, and other than that, it's just a reed switch spring-loaded trigger. The shroud end back is actually about a 13-inch diameter shroud, so it's a little smaller than most. I did that for travel reasons mainly. The material is actually a foam too, and it provides buoyancy for the back end, so it allows the tube to be shorter. Since we don't need a little bit of tube to provide extra buoyancy for the back end, this provides about 2.5 pounds of buoyancy on the back end, so it can shorten up the whole thing. The other feature on here is the recharge port. There's a underwater connector here that's only rated for 3,000 meters, so it's good for anything you're going to dive. And the pins in here, there are 4 pins that recharge the batteries. When the charger is not connected, there's no power at the pins. So there's a circuit in here that cuts off power to the batteries when the charger is not connected. So should the connector be off when it goes in the water, or should the connector get removed underwater, for another reason I'll talk about in a second, there won't be any power at the pins won't burn up. Also in the cover here is a circuit that enables the motor controller. So if the plug's not on, the motor controller won't be enabled. So that's the third safety feature. If for some reason the trigger does lock on, you can drive the speed to zero. If for some reason both of those fail on, you can remove the connector, and the connector will cut off power to the motor controller. It's an all-aluminum construction, anodized aluminum. There's a UHMW nose ring on the front, so when you throw it on the boat, nose up in the tank rack, it doesn't get scratched, so you don't scratch up your anodizing and get any corrosion that way. The other thing you'll notice is no clamps up front. I didn't want any screws or stainless onto this section of aluminum to avoid any galvanic corrosion. So the release for the nose cone is just a couple of strips. They get pulled out of the slot here. And then it comes apart. The tail cone section is completely environmentally sealed. It's not a pressure seal, but it avoids water getting splashed in here should you have to take it apart. The main reason the recharge port's on the front is so you don't have to take it apart during the week when you're out diving. One thing I've noticed on other scooters is when I've taken it apart, I get condensation inside, even if you don't drip water inside. Just when you put it in the water, it's a little cooler. You take it out, you open it up, the humidity in the air will condense on the inside. You do that enough times, I've actually had condensation build up inside, not dripping any water in. So by sealing off all the electronics and the motor, it just avoids any other issues of humidity getting in there. Battery connectors here. It's actually 2 batteries in series that are locked in there, and what it enables me to do is, on this battery it's not such of an issue, but on the smaller battery it's for travel purposes, because the smaller battery is a 600 watt-hour battery, but the FAA limitations for lithium batteries on aircraft is 300 watt hours, so it's on the smaller version it's two 300 watt hour batteries, which you can hand carry onto an airplane. So you can't take lithium batteries on an airplane up to this size. It's right at the limit. And that's about the extent of the scooter there. There's one more feature, that the motor and controller. The motor is actually shrunk into the aluminum tail cone, so the cooling for the motor is actually direct to the water. It's heat shrunk. The stator is heat shrunk into the tail cone, so the cooling is directly to the water. There's no air gap between the motor and the water that you have to get through. Same thing with the controller. The controller is right on the end plate, cools directly to the water. So even max speeds run here at Tahoe, the motor's tail ends have been coming out just stone cold even after full power runs. So that's about the extent of it. These are pre-production. They should be available hopefully November, October time frame on the first production run. So thanks for watching.